I have barely scratched the surface of this game. The main reason being that I can play the way I want to play. I usually explore, take every quest available, and just spend way more time doing absolutely nothing in a sandbox game than most people do. I dove in for hours and still feel like I'm barely getting started. Medieval Dynasty New Settlement is a VR game that just came out on the MetaQuest, and man, I have a lot to say about it. I want to stick to a few key topics to help you find out if this game is for you. Those topics are graphics, gameplay, survival, combat, and building. Comment below what you're looking to get out of this game, and I'll tell you at the end how you can get a possible 25% discount. Number 1, graphics. Let's get the cat out of the bag on this one. They're not disastrous, but they're not great. In many ways, the game is absolutely beautiful, but in other ways, it just looks rough. Not surprisingly, however, it wasn't even 2 gigs to download, which should be a selling point to most people as the MetaQuest systems don't have a ton in the way of storage. On the Quest 3, I noticed flickering, but I have a feeling that that'll be taken care of in the near future, as I've noticed that on other games at launch, and it's usually gone pretty soon. Other mild glitches are there. Whether you want to call them glitches or poor physics is up to you. At one point, a fox was too low under the ground to skin easily. My knife kept hitting the ground before the skinning point. When I chopped down certain trees, they spun around like a top. And I killed one bandit that made me feel like a giant from Skyrim. Whee! Speaking of which, the best way to describe the gameplay in Medieval Dynasty is Skyrim meets Green Hell, but a light version of both games. There's no dragons, but the playstyle is similar to the Elder Scrolls in the sense that you get quests and objectives and choose to play them when and how you want. There doesn't appear to be any skill tree, but you get choices of whether or not to do certain things. You can answer with truth or lies in some situations. You have reputation with people, and you're always helping others out. The quest can cause you to go in dangerous areas, or it can be as innocent as playing hide and seek with kids.
How can I help you?
Even though the graphics aren't the best, the game has a certain charm when you enter a village. People are nice and kind, slightly skeptical, but they move and act as though they actually live here. I understand that some might say they move like robots, but they basically are, and it's not like a huge team was working on this. Regardless, the villages are so quaint and charming. It's almost calming in a way. You even get invited to dinner at someone's house. The controls are very simple. I had no issues with figuring things out. There were a few times when the quest required me to retrieve something like clay, but it had to be from a specific clay mound, and that took me a minute to figure out. But anyone familiar with RPG menus should have no issue. I like that you could choose to have items stored on either your waist or your wrists. Maybe some won't like that, but I really enjoyed it. The Green Hell side of the game is obviously the survival side. Luckily, it's not that intense. Building a fire is as simple as getting a few rocks and adding wood. No starting it with flint or sparks. You just throw a stick down and a magic blaze appears as if from nowhere. I'll talk more about building in a minute. The only real survival is keeping up with your health and stamina, which most games have those anyways. Then you have your hunger and thirst. That's basically all you're worried about. Eating comes up, but as long as you're somewhere you can sleep and make food, it more or less just feels like a simulation and not an overly intense game. Bear in mind that up to this point, I've played what you might call medium difficulty, where I'm getting an equal balance of story and challenge. There's also a mode where there's no story, just like Green Hell, and it seems they really made sure to make the gameplay options such that anyone, beginner or enthusiast, will feel right at home. I feel like they did a great job of making a game that is both easy to pick up and challenging enough to be fun. The only thing the gameplay is missing at this point is multiplayer, which the flat screen version got at the end of last year. Comment below if you think the VR version will ever get it, or if you even want it. The combat is not my favorite, but it's also not bad. I really enjoyed throwing pikes at an archer when I had no arrows or a bow. Mostly my experience with combat up to this point is either using a stone axe on animals, or long range with a bow or a wooden pike. I suspect as I play more, combat will be more of a necessity, but so far I've not seen many bandits. I'm sure when my settlement starts to have livestock, employees, and people and things worth taking, that might be an issue. Building is a lot of fun. In some ways, it's just about collecting materials, and in others, you have to interact more for a realistic feel. For instance, making clay jugs was a pretty fun simulation of real-life clay spinning. And I like how you use the hammer to build things like the walls. Then there's things like the water well, where you literally just point and click where you want it with no interactivity at all. Materials seem easy to find, but the game says that trees take a year, I think that's right, to grow back. And if I start building more and more settlements, I have a feeling it might start getting a little bit more scarce. It is a sandbox style, so you can search everywhere for what you're looking for, including caves and mines, which I've not been in yet. The surface has so much already. In the adventure mode, you have to complete quests, and as you do, you unlock the ability to build certain things. This is how they serve you the tutorial. You can play the game without the story, but so far, the story is intriguing, and there are many side stories to keep me interested. One girl has an event where she lost a friend, and she won't talk about it. I need to know more about this. I love that the seasons change. They're all pretty in their own right if you can get over the crummy graphics. You can even sleep through a season if you feel the need and have the right amount of resources. If you want that discount, like the video, subscribe, drop a comment below, and head to the description.